Okay, so I told you I wanted you to come over here and look at this video because there's a couple of things that I just want to touch on with you that come from our notes that you did last week. So real quick, just a few things to mention. Genetic engineering is awesome. Moving genetic material, genes, from one organism to another. It's way cool. And so let's talk about that just a little bit. We've been doing this for a long time. Okay, we've been adjusting genetics to our benefit, to humans' benefit, for a long time. Okay, through selective breeding. That's been the method that we've used. Oh, let's go back to that. So we use selective breeding. We choose the bull and the cow because they have the traits that we want. We let them breed and we get offspring from them. We choose the corn plant that has the most seeds, the biggest seeds, the wheat plant, whatever it might be. We have used selective breeding to create the next generation of crops and production that we're going to get. So genetic engineering is not a new thing. The thing that is it's not even new anymore. It's been around for a long time, doing this with specific DNA sequences as well. In this case, we're looking at doing genetic engineering in a lab and pulling specific genes from the DNA sequence from one organism and actually inserting them or changing them in another organism. And it doesn't have to be animal to animal. It doesn't even have to be the same breed to the same breed. We can change it out. For instance, fish genes in a strawberry. Sounds kind of crazy, right? But it's not going to make your strawberries smell like fish. The thing that they're accomplishing with that is they've taken those genes in a fish that allow them to be frozen in ice, and then when it thaws, to swim away. So those antifreeze type genes, they put that in a strawberry, which hopefully helps to keep strawberries from freezing, which is a total detriment to strawberry farmers when there's a frost. And it goes the same way with any crop. If that's possible, it's one way to help farmers, agriculturists, consumers to be able to have the food sources that they need, as well as the production that those farmers need, so that they can have their livelihood. So genetic engineering is a really cool process. Okay. So like I said, we're actually manipulating genes at the DNA level with this genetic engineering that we're talking about now. Some things that we do: bacteria to create human insulin. Insert the insulin gene in the bacteria and they produce it like crazy. Oh, getting a phone call. Gonna have to push pause for a minute. Okay, I think we're back. Phone call taken care of. We use pigs to actually produce a blood clotting agent called factor VIII that hemophiliacs need, so that they won't die if they get a scratch. Bacteria also produce a hormone called BST, which we go through some of those notes. You took some notes on it. Bovine somatotropin to help in milk production with dairy cattle. Super cool processes to utilize other organisms to produce things that we need, or that other animals need, or other organisms need, I should say. So some really cool things there. Some processes, all that kind of stuff. You should have gone through the notes to look at that. If you need to, go back over it. There's some interesting things there. If you want to do a little bit of research on your own, go check out some YouTube videos of how it's done. Absolutely awesome. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it in our video, but there are some really cool things that we use that are created through genetic engineering to help in agriculture. Okay, viruses, virus-resistant plants. And we're talking about this virus stuff right now, right? Coronavirus. Is it resistant? Did it evolve? Do we need some genetic engineering to get rid of it? I don't know. This is all just, anyway, crazy. But we've got plants that are resistant to Roundup. You guys have heard of Roundup Ready plants, like Roundup Ready corn, Roundup Ready alfalfa. That's all because of genetic engineering, which brings up a whole nother list of talking points, right? We're looking at the what's the word, ethicalness, the ethics of it, whether or not it's okay to change the DNA of a plant. Now, I'll tell you this, again, we've been doing it for a long, long time through selective breeding. We now have the ability to do it at the DNA level in a lab. Which way is right? Which way is wrong? Are they both wrong? Are they both okay? That's for you to decide. I'm not going to tell you one way or the other. Medicine uses GMOs all the time. Okay, genetic engineering is what produces a genetically modified organism. Okay, so we're using genetically engineered organisms all the time. GMOs, genetically modified organisms. Now, when you watch the video with Jimmy Fallon, not Jimmy Fallon, which one was it? The other Jimmy. Jimmy Kimmel. Anyway, one of the videos I've linked you to in the assignment. Have a look at it. Some funny people there. GMOs. Okay. Medicine, we use it to produce pharmaceuticals, and we're taking care of all kinds of genetic diseases through genetic engineering. Lots of awesome stuff. We can use genetic engineering to clean up the environment. There are scientists that have genetically engineered bacteria so that they will eat oil that have spilled in the ocean or wherever it might be, toxic chemicals, all kinds of things. Okay. Again, bacteria is a big one because we can use bacteria because they reproduce so quickly and their little single cellular bodies work to produce the things, their enzymes and their ribosomes and all that stuff to create proteins through translation and transcription and all those processes we talked about with DNA. They work very well, and so we can utilize that process to create the proteins that we need, or in other words, some of these other chemicals that are needed for people. Get insulin, BST, TPA, vaccines, all kinds of things. Okay. Go ahead and have a look at some of these if you want to do a little research. YouTube's a good way to do it. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff out there. You're going to get a lot of opinions. So be able to weed through some of that stuff, find out what's what, form an opinion of your own, and decide what's the thing that you want to be interested in. So anyway, some other things, genetic alterations are also done through selective or controlled breeding. Okay, and that's what I told you. This is the oldest way to genetically engineer an organism. So here it is, controlled breeding, either using inbreeding to breed phenotypically similar animals that are closely related. Okay, this is used, not very often, but it can be used because it produces weaker organisms in the end, generally. You may end up with some really neat traits that can be shown in that animal or that plant, but it does increase the chance of harmful homozygous recessive traits. Okay, we can end up with traits that are very detrimental to those organisms through inbreeding. So there's a lot of risk involved in that. Sometimes the risk is worth it. Sometimes, a lot of times, it's probably not. We use crossbreeding a lot, hybridization, creating a hybrid through crossbreeding. So we're crossbreeding two different types of that same species of animal. So for instance, we crossbreed a Hereford and an Angus. Okay, that animal has some hybrid vigor and will outproduce its parents because it takes on a lot of those good traits and decreases the chances of harmful recessive traits. Okay, so crossbreeding is a big deal, and we end up with a lot of good things. We do utilize artificial insemination a lot in agriculture with cattle and horses and sheep even, and goats. It's utilized in the zoo industry to preserve those animals that potentially are endangered, hoping that they can produce animals and save species. Artificial insemination is one that is used quite often in our agricultural industry today. So there's a big one that we use. Let's see, a couple other things. Embryo transfer is a big one that can be used where we actually flush eggs from a donor female that has the traits we want. And they're actually fertilized eggs, right? So they've already been artificially inseminated. We flush those eggs and then place them into a recipient or a surrogate mother, okay? Cloning is also a big one, very expensive, so it's not used as often, but it does get used. This is a viable technique that we use in the animal industry, agriculture, to actually produce animals, especially when we've got an animal that's got those genes that are exactly the ones we want. Obviously, with each animal, even in a clone, different genes get turned on, and so they may not exhibit the traits that the original animal had. So it's a little tricky, but definitely used. So that's kind of where I wanted to go today and talk to you about, because just wanted to make sure that you got some of the meat of this this lesson. Agriculture uses genetic engineering and selective breeding to get better and better each year. Every year we outproduce and outperform the last year in general. Okay, obviously there are environmental factors that cause issues, but in general we are getting better and better every year in the agricultural industry. So just want to make sure you're on the same page on those kind of things and how we get to that point. All right, have a great day.